Right. Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to start the webinar now, and some people might join later. So there's a few names I recognize, a few that I don't on this call. If you don't know me, my name is Lewis. I'm a technical architect here at Planet IT. I specialize in Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Azure compute services. So I pretty much know the entire 365 suite along with Azure's infrastructure. It's all I've ever worked on in my career. Hopefully, if you're joining this webinar, you know what Planet IT is and you know what we do. If you don't, here's a small list of it. We pretty much do anything and everything around IT. And we've just got a list of a few of our customers. So the aim of today's session, there's a few things on here, but ultimately we are looking to improve people's knowledge on Copilot. And in particular for this webinar is to demonstrate how Copilot is used in the real world. So a lot of the examples that we're going to go through will be examples I come up with or examples that I do here at Planet. So myself and a few other team members, we all have Copilot within our team and outside our team here at Planet, and we use Copilot a lot for various different tasks, and we're going to go through some examples and we'll talk about them. This webinar, while obviously only I am speaking, you are welcome to put questions in the chat. You don't have to wait to the end. It's meant to be more of an interactive one. So if you have a question, please just put it in the chat and I'll answer it. There will be time at the end to go through a few things as well. So we're looking to get a better understanding of Microsoft Copilot, what it is. I appreciate some people on here might not know, some people will. Improve knowledge on using Microsoft Copilot and seeing what it can do. So we're going to start off with some Microsoft stats here. I don't think I need to tell you guys that obviously the world is changing in terms of AI. It's always in the news. You quite literally can't get away from it. It's all about AI. It's all about Llama from Facebook or Gemini and Google or ChatGPT, which is what you see everywhere. Some people are comparing it to the birth of the internet, which I can't really speak much on because I wasn't born then. But people are comparing it to that, and I could agree, but like I said, I can't compare it. The growth of AI has been outstanding. Now, this is just a large language model growth. AI has been around for a while, but it's not true AI. It's not true artificial intelligence, but because that terminology has kind of been coined, it's just stuck. And everyone refers to AI as effectively what is machine learning. And that's been around for ages. Microsoft's been using machine learning for years, along with various other companies. But you can see here that it only took ChatGPT, so OpenAI service, 3 months to get 100 million users, and it took Facebook 4.5 years. It took 7 years people on the internet to get people on the internet 100 million, and obviously 16 years for 100 million people to use mobile phones, which is crazy. And the fact that in 3 months 100 million people, it's outstanding. I remember when ChatGPT came out, and everyone was using it, everyone was testing it. It was slow because there was just so much traffic going through it. But enough about that. We're focusing on Copilot today. So if you don't know what Copilot is, it's Microsoft's AI solution to an enterprise workspace. They use ChatGPT on their backend. So they have a large investment in OpenAI service, so they get access to ChatGPT along with all the newer models like Turbo, 4 Turbo, and 4.0. There are a wide range of copilots. Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom and how they name things, have made it really difficult to talk about Copilot because there's just so many. So you got Copilot. Copilot integrates with Bing and Edge. These are referred to like the web copilot, so they're just your standard large language model. Same if you were to use ChatGPT, and we'll talk about that a little later. You have Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is what we'll be pretty much focusing on for this session. And this integrates obviously into your 365 workspace, you know, Outlook, Teams, etc. Windows Copilot, that sits on Windows devices. So at the moment, this is only available for personal devices. They are looking to roll it out to corporate devices. At some point, they had a bit of a drawback when they released their new Sky feature, but so we'll talk about Dynamics Copilot. It sits on top of Dynamics, Fabric, Security, GitHub, and Power Platform, all named Copilot, obviously with their little bit at the front. But yeah, we're primarily focused on the 365 one. So in terms of how Copilot works, you have a large language model that sits on top of your 365 tenancy. Now, this large language model has access to your entire 365, so your SharePoint data, your Teams data, the transcripts, Outlook, all of that, emails. It has access to all of this data, and it uses that to basically learn about your 365. Now, that doesn't mean when you assign a license to a user, they don't suddenly get access to everything. It doesn't work like that. There's something on the back end of Microsoft 365 called Microsoft Graph API. Now, Graph API is where, let's say I'm a user, I log into 365, I try and access a Word document, I've got permissions, I access it. That is Graph API connecting to the services like Word to make sure, or SharePoint, sorry, to make sure that my user account has permission. So if I ask Copilot to access, let's say, the HR folder, even though Copilot can see it, it still follows the Graph API rules of do I have permission? And obviously, if I don't, it says it can't access it. So the large language model sits on top, and it has a bunch of plugins of how it connects into your 365 services. So SharePoint and OneDrive are a key example. If you ask it to locate something in SharePoint, it will trigger the SharePoint plugin. It will talk to SharePoint. It will get the data back and pull it back to you. Same if you were to email, connects to the Outlook plugin, and connects to that and gets the data back. So it's really clear that if you are planning to use Copilot in any sense, which I'll talk about in a little bit, your data is protected. So it comes under the same umbrella as the model where Microsoft can't access your emails, they can't access your data without prior approval. It's that same agreement that anything you feed into Copilot is not used to train their large language model or train the data of, which is rare. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but obviously, a big part of being an IT admin is ensuring that you have control over your data and ensuring that users aren't just feeding other AI your corporate secrets. So before we get into it, it's very important to understand how to prompt. Now, you might have heard the terminology, but things like prompt engineering has been it's been around the block a few times. People are taking courses how to do prompt engineering. Ultimately, large language models are still new. In a sense, they've been around for about 2 years now. They've been around for a bit longer, but in the last 2 years, they have scaled massively, and they've got to the point where they are incredibly intelligent and incredibly smart. But as a user using a large language model, you need to make sure that you are correctly talking to it to get the correct data. So Microsoft breaks it down by 4 bits, which is the goal of what you want from Copilot. The context, so what you need, where you getting this information from. If you're thinking about a SharePoint document, there will be hundreds of files in your SharePoint, probably thousands of SharePoint files. You need to be clear about what you want it to get, and there's a few tricks which I'll show later on, but yeah, you need to be clear in what you're getting. The source, so where it is, and then expectations. That last one's really important, is expectations of the large language model. If you don't tell it to do things, it will just assume, and you know how bad assuming can be. And I'll show you some examples of that a little later on. Do's and don'ts, so be clear, ask for feedback, keep it conversational. This is really weird to talk about, but you should be having a conversation with the large language model back and forth. I use it quite a bit for things like PowerShell scripting or Graph API scripting within 365 or just on Windows. It gets things wrong, and I tell it that it's wrong. I'm say, oh, this is wrong. Can you fix this? And it will fix it. Keep back and forth. Check for accuracy. This should be at the top of the list, is the most important thing. And if you are looking to implement Copilot into your enterprise business, then you need to have an AI policy that clearly states that the user is responsible for checking their work that they send out. It seems like common knowledge, but it becomes a habit. People will copy and paste things directly from Copilot or any large language model straight into an email. They'll skim over it and send it, and they won't check it. It's still your responsibility to check the accuracy and data of what Copilot produces. Over time, things like that will get better as AI improves. You have to do less checking, but at the moment, it's so important to make sure you check. Given examples and provide as much detail as possible. What not to do: give conflicting instructions. Don't be vague. Check for accuracy. Check for accuracy again. And use slang. So it's very important to understand that large language models will always answer you regardless. They can't take no. They won't give no for an answer. So if you say something like, "What color is the sky?" and then it says blue, and then you say, "No, it's green. I looked outside," it will say, "Oh, my mistake. It's green then." It's things like that. You need to be very clear. And if you're tricking on purpose, fine. If you want to do testing, but if you're using an enterprise point of view, you just need to make sure you're not conflicting things. And to get around it, it's always good to have new topics so you can start a new chat and it won't remember what you've just talked about in much detail, which saves it from getting confused. So the first part we're going to look at is Microsoft Copilot for Web. So Microsoft Copilot for Web is available to everyone, regardless if you have a 365 login, if you have a license, doesn't matter, it's available to everyone. It looks like this. You can see there at the top right, I am signed in to my Planet IT account, which means that any data that I feed into Copilot, even though it's the web version, is still protected by that commercial data protection that you have with Microsoft. This is so important. If I was an IT manager at any company, I would be saying, please use Copilot, a set single sign-on, a set single sign-on up, so you sign directly in, because then users are free to give company information into Copilot without risking giving that data to someone else. I don't know how many people in this call can say that they know full well that their users aren't given things like OpenAI, Gemini, Llama, Grok, all of those large language models data from your business. Especially OpenAI, loads of people use ChatGPT for work, which is great. But obviously, if you're feeding OpenAI data, they will use it to train their large language model. And there's been multiple cases where people have put passwords in, they put corporate secrets in, especially around scripting and stuff, just silly things that shouldn't be happening. You can avoid all of that by just obviously convincing them to use Copilot, again, to use Copilot, put it in your AI policy, and well, that means they can be free and use it as much as they want. Like I said, this is available for free. Everyone gets access to this, even the commercial data bit as well. It's a way of Microsoft trying to get people over. And in terms of the model on the back end, you can see at the bottom, you have ChatGPT 4 and ChatGPT 4 Turbo. So this screenshot's a little old. They are now in the process of upgrading Copilot to ChatGPT 4.0, which is the latest model, which is way better than Turbo. It's the model they showcase being able to talk and watch a screen in real time, stuff like that. And then in the middle, you can change how it talks. Those are prompts in the middle, the creative, balance, and precise. So just keep an eye on them. I think they're going to remove that at some point, but effectively all that's doing is adding a prompt to the start saying, be creative with the prompt or the next prompt. You can see top left that we are in the web view. If you have a license, you'll be able to switch over to that work view, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, you'll be able to switch over and talk about it later. So here's a few examples of me using Copilot for Web. So you can see in the top left there, I put what's the latest on OpenAI's ChatGPT 5. It's given me a breakdown, and it's also given me the source of the location of where it got the information. This is so important that you understand where it's done its data. If you can see, it's a little bit small, but at the end of each sentence, it's got little numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You click on that one and it will take you to the reference, to the page and where it got that piece of text from. If it doesn't have that little box with the number, that means it's used its internal brain to basically say what just to say it uses its own memory, like that bottom line where it says these updates reflect ongoing. That one has it's just thought of that. And back to keeping it conversational, I said how to update or how up to date is the information below, and it's gone away and it's told me where it's got it from. And again, it shows me the references at the bottom to show that well, show that it's not lying, to show that it's true. And I clicked those links and they were absolutely right. They were up to date. They were a couple of days old, some of the articles. Also, you have with Copilot, they have integrated plugins now into it. So as OpenAI expands their just AI reach, so not just large language models, but like image creation and stuff like that, Microsoft is doing the same. So they've integrated DALL-E, I think it's 4 now. So it means that users can create images. It's not the best, I'll be open and honest. It does the same thing quite a few times, but if it's good enough to give you an idea to get started on, then it's a good tool to use. One of the things I'll talk about quite a bit is AI Copilot. It's not perfect. It's not there to replace your job. It is there to enhance it. So instead of you spending, I don't know, for my example, instead of me spending 20 minutes to write PowerShell code, I can get Copilot to write the baseline. I can then either fix it, debug it, and not have to spend so much time writing these complex codes. And that applies to things people like writing proposals, just getting general ideas on how to do things. I think I used it the other day to figure out how to do a Windows 2012 upgrade to 2022. Because I've never done it before. I've only worked on Azure, so I've only worked on 2019, 2022. So moving on, Copilot for Work. So this is in the same page. As you saw, it is now on the top left. So we have moved that little button showing work, and I've now asked it a question relating to my 365 infrastructure. So I've asked, so you can see here at the top, it's a bit small, I apologize. It says, using the document Microsoft 365 Health Check, what is the status of 365 infrastructure? There are blanks, it's a customer name, so it's been blanked out, but you can see here it's broken down the report. So I wrote this report. I know that information is correct. It's given me in bullet points. More importantly, at the bottom, I've enlarged it for you. You can see where it got that information from. So you know that the document it's got it from is correct. And then from there, you can ask even more questions. So you can ask, what are the recommendations? What about the licensing breach, and what are the next steps? Really cool, useful tool. This page here integrates with your 365 tenancy as a whole. So your SharePoint, your OneDrive, your Teams, your emails. If you ask it, when's my next calendar appointment with my boss, James, for me, when's my next appointment with James, it will show me the next one. If I ask it, when is James next available for a 30-minute call, it will go away and check his calendar. This accesses everything. What you'll find is Copilot is all over the place in all of the 365 apps. You'll find it everywhere. You can't get away from it once you get assigned a license, and you'll find that you can access things from one area and the same from the same area. So, if you're in Outlook and open up Copilot, you can ask to summarize your Teams messages. I'm hoping Microsoft will try and unify this approach instead of multiple different buttons, but for now, it's just good to know that you can kind of access your data from anywhere. But this is kind of the main areas where people use it, is the web version, the work for web version, to be clear. Cool. Next up is Microsoft Teams. So there's some really cool features in Teams, and this is where we find that most of our customers are using Teams to enhance their users' productivity and efficiency. There's some really cool features. One of the best ones I've here that I put an example of if you go away. So I went on holiday a couple of weeks ago, and I come back and I can highlight, or I can ask it to highlight the data from the past 7 days from my Teams messages. So this particular one is from a group chat that I had with my boss and my colleague. You can see here that it's nicely summarized that my boss is hosting a party or something. And you can see the message on the right is a large message. It's got a lot of fluff in it, talking about things that aren't really important. And on the left, the highlights, it is clear and precise with a 2 or 3 sentence bullet point, giving me the key information. If I want to know more, then I just click that little button to that one button, and it will take me directly to that message. It's really useful for just clearing out data that you don't want to read through. It can be a little bit junky, a little funny sometimes. We have a group chat with all our salespeople in, so about 30 of us. They send a lot of like GIFs and stuff, and sometimes it doesn't quite understand that I don't care if someone sends a GIF of a cat or something. Sometimes it tells me in the catch up. Like I said, it's got a long way to go. But the current feature is obviously really useful. The next really useful one, which is even more useful than the other one, is the recap feature. So this recap feature is available even if you don't join the Teams meeting. So as long as you've been invited to the Teams meeting, you have access to the recap feature. This basically is where Microsoft Teams takes a transcript of the information of the meeting, and then AI will produce notes based off the back of that, and it breaks it down to the meeting notes and follow-up tasks. So if you're clear in your meeting, you say, Lewis, can you make sure that you configure Intune for this customer by X dates or whatever, it will make that clear, and it will even assign the user that task. From there, if anyone here uses Viva, Viva Engage Insights, you can make Viva tasks and add it to your task list. It's a really useful feature. A lot of our customers use this just to speed up the process when they use, like, they have people who take meeting notes who no longer need to do that because they use this feature to capture all the notes. And you can also interrogate this as well. If you're not happy with the note, you want more information, you want less information, you want it more compact, you want to focus on a set area like that Intune piece, you can just talk to it and say, please, can you make this these AI notes smaller, or include this, or focus more on this. Here, just a few example prompts. So you can see at the bottom, I've included the Microsoft links for the Copilot Labs. That gives you loads of prompt ideas. These are just ideas. It's not a list of every single prompt available, because there will be hundreds of thousands of prompts that you can say and ask it to do. But here's some really useful ones at the top of that list. Things like the summarization, what we talked about, understand the decisions for a meeting, get a schedule. That's really useful if you have multiple people. Asking Copilot to find the next available date for, I don't know, 4 or 5 people can be really useful, instead of you manually going into your calendar, adding those users, and then pressing through until you find the next available date that works. I'll let people look through that. I'll put the link in at the end. Microsoft Outlook, there are loads of features. The 2 core ones that people use is the draft. So once you open up Outlook, you'll see that you have the bit where your text would be is now taken over by Copilot. You can change the setting, but if you need Copilot to draft just the start of an email, then you can do that. You know, if it saves you 5 minutes of writing an email, thinking, putting it together, then it can be worth it. Another really cool feature of Outlook is the coaching feature. Now, I don't actually have any screenshots of this. I don't use it as often, but my boss uses the coaching feature, and a few of our clients do. And it basically coaches you on how to send emails in a better manner. It always tries to be nice. My boss is very direct. He would be he like instead of the start of an email, he just put my name instead of like hi or dear or whatever. Um, and Copilot picked up on that and said, you should try doing this and adding this. It will make you appear more friendly. Um, and he replied saying he doesn't want to be, and it listened, and that was the end of it. But there's loads of things where Copilot coaching can help you with your emails. It's basically like an enhanced grammar checking sort of thing. If you know want to sound smarter, if there's certain words you want to think you can't think of, it will pick up on that and just kind of make it look better. So in terms of drafting emails, I've put there drafting email of a prospect customer interested in Microsoft Copilot. At the top, you can see it's drafted me an email. I've decided to add another line saying they're also interested in Microsoft Intune. Please bulk out the email to include both products and then separate by paragraphs as well. So I'm talking back and forth with Copilot to get what I want. And then this was the end result. Now, I'm reasonably happy with this email, and it took me less than a minute. And now, some people could say you could write that quicker, but if it's a subject you're not too sure about, then this would definitely save you time. It just needs a hi and a thanks at the end. And then again, here a few just example prompts that you can do. So obviously writing an email for webinar attendees, write product launch email and reply to an email or draft an email. It could do obviously loads of things outside of that. Those are just examples from the website. Right, Microsoft Word. So again, this is where people use Copilot quite a bit to buff out certain things. So here, Planet rewrite a lot of proposals to do IT work. As a technical architect, sometimes I get issues or problems presented to me that I don't necessarily know how to fix, or I just don't know the solution. I might be covering for my team members where I don't specialize in it. And this is really helpful to buffing out like a proposal for me. So if I didn't know how to integrate Intune or set up Intune and migrate it from SCCM or Active Directory, I can use Copilot, buff our proposal, proofread it, check it, and it's just saved me a whole bunch of time and it looks good and professional. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is what it came back with. It had some problems, but it's a great example to see. It was 7 pages long with 2,000 words. If that's too much, just tell it. Just say, oh, it's too many words. It's too big. You need to reduce it. Or too many pages. Need to reduce it. You can see here that it's used the American spelling of enrollment. Now you'll find this quite a bit. It's a bit Americanized because a lot of the data on the internet, at least the training data used by OpenAI, is Americanized. So it's unfortunate, but it will get better over time. But you can see here that all I've done is ask it to, instead of using the American spelling of some words, please use the British spelling, and it redoes it and it changes it and adds all of it. The funny thing is about this is that it's added costings to it, which I didn't ask it to do. It's just found some costings which are kind of crazy, especially with the timelines as well for 4 weeks. But again, you just ask, you say, you don't need to include costings, please remove it, and it will do that. It's just about that, having that conversation back and forth. And then here are some more prompts for it. There are loads of things you can do in Word. Another feature that people use, which I think you can see on the right down there on the bottom, oh no, top right, sorry, is summarization of documents. I can't be alone when people send me huge documents, 20, 30 pages of just walls of text. It's so useful, Copilot, to summarize documents and bullet point things into understandable data for me. Obviously, I don't use this for all of the documents, and you might not either, but there are definitely some documents that I use it for to just get key information out which I need quickly. Let's take it back to the prompts. You can see here that there's loads of options, value propositions, prepare spokespersons, brief. So, if you wanted to create um, create like a talk or chat or something. One of my colleagues, or one of my friends, sorry, a colleague at my old job, recently became the manager, and he used it to set up pit plans. It's really useful. It's not something he's done before, something new to him, and it's really helped him set up these plans and help him, I guess, be a better manager. And the other things, messaging frameworks, clarity, compile industry trends, go-to-market strategies, and FAQ documents. Like an FAQ document's a great example. You don't necessarily know what people are going to ask about products. So if you do have a scenario where you need to think of what people would ask, like common occurring questions, you can ask Copilot to generate them for you, which will save you a whole bunch of time instead of just sat there thinking or talking to people about it. Microsoft Excel. So about 2 months ago, a Copilot in Microsoft Excel was kind of useless. It couldn't really interact with the data. It didn't really understand what you were asking it to do. And then about 2 months ago, Microsoft pushed out a huge update to Copilot in Excel, which kind of changed all of that, with the caveat being that Copilot can only interact with Excel tables. Now, the limit of these tables, I believe, is I think it's 500,000 cells. So right or left or down. It's 500,000 cells it can interact with. Obviously, the bigger the Excel size, the more time it will take to produce data. But you could do loads of things. Some people here will probably be brilliant with Excel and they know how to do a pivot table and make a graph in an instant. Some people hate Excel. I'm part of that group as well. Not a fan of Excel. But there's also a lot of just younger people coming into the workforce that don't necessarily fully understand it. And using Copilot, you can increase their experience with Excel by getting them to use Copilot to create things like pivot tables based off the information. So, the example here is what's the total sales from Andrew? And you can see that it's taken the total for the rep Andrew and it's done a sum of the total. It can get way more complex than this. This is just a simple query, but if you have a huge data sheet, you can get way more complex. You can ask it to make a graph, a pie chart. You can ask it to find trends as well. There's a really good example on another workshop that we did of car crashes in New York, and it can break down like trends. One of the trends was car crashes are more likely to happen in the day, which makes sense because more people are driving in the day. It's just things like that, data that you might not be able to see straight away with your eyes, but with a quick question to Copilot, you can get it immediately. And then there's loads of things you can do with Excel. It just interacts with the application. Same with the other ones. It directly interacts. So if you need to apply color scales, if you want to show insights, outliers, you can compare data. So if you have 2 Excel spreadsheets, you can compare the data, visualization of the data as well, just get ideas and obviously the count and stuff. There's loads of options there. And finally, from the 365 apps is PowerPoint. Now, I'll be the first to admit that Copilot in PowerPoint is probably one of the weakest versions of Copilot. I'm sure Microsoft will get around to updating it, but as it stands, it just struggles a bit. And I think a big reason for that is PowerPoints are personal unless your company has like a set thing they use. A lot of people create PowerPoints at a personal level. They have their own idea of a design inside, and Copilot struggles to figure out what you want in your head, probably because you're not describing exactly what you want, which is quite difficult. So this is just the basic one. Create me a PowerPoint about Copilot. You'll notice it's 5 slides long. It will always do 5 slides by default. It's just how it is. If you want more slides or less, you need to tell it that. It also is very heavy on images. It likes to reuse them. Again, you need to be clear. So if I redo the prompts and I do create me a PowerPoint presentation, 10 slides long, no images about the benefit of Copilot. So I don't want any images in the benefits. I want 10 slides, and you can see here that it's actually done a much better job at making it look more professional. It's added more data. It's got rid of those big images, and I can just go back and forth amending it on how I want it to look. But again, PowerPoints are obviously personal. Everyone has their own design idea. Most people use templates. If your corporate does, the ability to use templates isn't in Copilot right now, but it's on their roadmap. So if you were looking for it to use a template to then base or use as a base template, then it will be available soon. And then here, just a few more examples. So, celebration images, you can, add custom images or ask it sort of images you want. Again, you can do optimize KPI metrics, underperforming KPIs, summarize employee benefits. It can take documents. So if you have a Word document, like a proposal that you want to put into a PowerPoint, you can do that. Just say, please take this Word document and create a PowerPoint, 10 slides long, 15 slides. It needs to contain this information, have no images, keep it professional, etc. But you can it doesn't have to be that one prompt. You can just go back and forth with it and have that obviously conversational. Just on that, I don't have an example here, but when you want to reference a document, you either do the @ symbol and it will give you options and you just type the document you want, or the / symbol as well will achieve the same result. Both of those will find it. The @ symbol is also used for finding people as well. So if you do like @James Dell, it will find that. So the last few things I want to talk about in this webinar is managing of data. So it's very important that if you are looking to introduce Copilot into your 365 infrastructure, then you need to make sure that your SharePoint data is secure. So you need to make sure there's no leaks, especially things like sharing links. One of the most common things I see is users have by default have permission to use sharing links. What they do is they share a folder with another user. They'll work on that folder for a little bit. That user won't use that link. Maybe they sent in an email and that was like a year ago, but they still got access to that folder. Maybe that person's uploaded more stuff to that folder. The user has no idea, but Copilot sees everything. If it's got permission, it will access it. So it's so important to make sure that your SharePoint data is in good standing order and disable things. It's not your users doing it on purpose. It's users who just don't know better. But obviously, as an IT team, you can enforce a bit of stricter policies around how SharePoint data is shared, along with OneDrive and along with Teams and Outlook. Just on the Teams transcripts as well, it's very important to realize when you turn on Copilot, transcripts can be and they will be turned on by default, which means a real common scenario that me and my boss always joke about is we will have a call with various people. The meeting will end. My boss will say, Lois, can you just stay on? I want to have a quick chat. And then we'll just talk about something that's not work related. And you'll find that obviously the transcript is still going. It's still it's still recording all that information for anyone in the meeting to see. So you just need to make it clear to users and realize that yourself that the transcript's always on, and obviously the notes will pick up stuff. If you don't want that to happen, then just call the person after. It needs to be more of a user change rather than an IT change. And then finally, sensitivity labeling is very important as well. If you have Microsoft Business Premium, then you have sensitivity labeling available to you. It's really important to categorize your data. If you don't want Copilot looking at highly sensitive data, then you need to tag it as such. But it's more important that you just tag information in general. So if you have Let's say company emails, you have directors sending corporate secrets between each other, talking about what they're going to do if they're selling the company or whatever. That needs to be marked as highly confidential. They can do that when they send the email or save a document. That option's there, and then you can control your data and how Copilot interacts. But in general, being able to view your sensitivity labelings broken down by data is really good, because you can do loads of reporting on the back end to see which users are interacting with which sort of data. Is highly confidential data being sent to external users? Is it being used in Copilot? Stuff like that. Cool, that's it for me. I hope it was useful for everyone to see some examples in real time. Like I said, I've noticed a few people's names that have Copilot already, some people who don't. If anyone has any questions about Copilot, any examples they want to see, or ask if it could do this, it can do that. If you have a scenario in mind, please put it in the chat and I can answer it. If you want to get in touch separately outside of this, you can. Planet provides a Copilot readiness check where we can provide you a full report of all your sharing links. And if you're Copilot ready, so if your permissions are set up, we also do sensitivity labeling creation. We do all of that. I say we, it will be me doing it. If you have an account manager, get in touch with them. If not, you can get in touch with me directly. When asking Copilot to highlight the emails for past 7 days, is there a limit of the number of emails it will show you? So there are obviously text limitations. There's only so much it can put in a text. You probably need to be clear. 7 days is fine. I think the longest I did was 2 weeks, but the more data you try and ask from it, the more it will try and compact it. So to be safe, I think 7 days is a good amount. Just because there's a text limit, that's all. So if you say, summarize my emails from the 20th of May to the 25th of May, then it can do that as well. It's just about being smart with interacting with it. The limitations are from user prompts rather than from a technical limitation. Cool. If there's no any more questions, then thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, and please get in touch if you want to set any of the stuff up, or if you just want to see a bit more Copilot demoing, bit more action from it, or sensitivity labeling. Thanks everyone for joining, and I hope you will have a good evening, almost, when it comes.